Good morning. Thanks everyone for being here. We are here today because Tesla shareholders, including New York City's teachers, cops, firefighters, school crossing guards, and all municipal employees, retirees, and future retirees, Tesla shareholders deserve better. Tesla shareholders deserve a company that tells the truth in its filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission, filings that investors legally rely on. Tesla shareholders deserve an independent board of directors that exercises oversight of management on behalf of shareholders. And Tesla shareholders deserve a full-time CEO who is devoted to growing the sales and revenues of the company by selling electric vehicles, by innovating and promoting new models, and by helping the company grow and succeed. Unfortunately, ever since Elon Musk took over Doge and became best friend in chief of Donald Trump, Tesla shareholders have had none of those things. In less than 3 months, Tesla stock has lost nearly 40% of its value, cratering value for shareholders, including the New York City retirement systems, who have lost over $300 million in Tesla stock value over the past 3 months. And that's why today I am calling on the New York City Law Department to pursue shareholder litigation, securities litigation against Tesla, both to recover losses that are due to material misrepresentations and to force changes at the company so there will be independent governance and a full-time CEO. The basis of the potential litigation are material misstatements from Tesla, claiming that CEO Elon Musk still spends significant time at the company and is highly active in its management when everyone can see where his attention is and that it is not on acting as the CEO of Tesla. Meanwhile, while he's helming the Trump administration's Doge, he's not only spending his time on something far away from Tesla, he's actually materially harming Tesla through policies that are pillaging the Inflation Reduction Act and making it less likely that people will purchase EVs, and of course alienating the customers who are likely to buy EVs. Tesla shareholders have the right to expect a CEO who is focused on growing the business of Tesla and selling electric vehicles and dedicating his attention to the company, and Tesla shareholders don't have it. Look, there's no other company that I am aware of, certainly not one of this scale, where the board of directors allows the CEO to spend no time running the company, go off and pursue policies that are harmful to the company, and alienate the customers that the company relies on. But unfortunately, that is what's happening at Tesla, even as we speak. Now, this is not a new set of concerns for the New York City retirement systems. We've long expressed the concern that Tesla's board has failed to provide meaningful independent oversight, and we've long expressed the concern that Elon Musk is not working as the full-time CEO of Tesla. Okay, so you can move that. Thanks. As far back as 2017, thanks, Chloe. As far back as 2017, long before I was the controller, the New York City retirement systems engaged in dialogue, in letters, in meetings with the board, in shareholder action, calling on Tesla to have real independent governance. The whole way that shareholder governance is supposed to work is that independent directors at companies are expected to represent independent shareholders, not be cozy with, related to, buddies with management, and provide that independent oversight and governance. And so as far back as 2017 and continuing many times after, the New York City retirement systems have taken shareholder action to call for and to push for that more professional and independent governance. Unfortunately, we did not get it. And so last year, on May 12th, 2024, on behalf of the 5 New York City retirement systems and 7 other investors, I submitted what's called a notice of exempt solicitation That's a formal letter that you file with the SEC, letting other shareholders know, and in this case, calling on Tesla shareholders to reject a proposed pay package for Elon Musk, one of the largest in history, a $46 billion pay package, calling on shareholders to reject that proposed pay package, and also to reject the renomination of Elon's brother, Kimball Musk, to the board, as well as his buddy, James Murdoch, because of their failures to provide that independent oversight. And in particular, in that letter, I expressed concern that the board has been failing to hold Musk accountable to be the chief executive officer, even long before Doge, noting that he was dramatically overcommitted, given that he was also running X, formerly Twitter, SpaceX, XAI, Neuralink, and the Boring Company. I won't get into representations about the Boring Company. Unfortunately, despite that notice of exempt solicitation, problems remain unchecked. And with Musk's arrival at Doge, his attention on Tesla has diminished entirely. Tesla shareholders don't have a full-time CEO paying attention to the company and their interests. And yet, the company, Tesla, has materially misrepresented these facts. What they said in their December 2024 filing to the SEC is that CEO and techno king Elon Musk continues to devote significant time to the company and to serve as CEO when anyone can see that that is not what happens. But that material representation, what they file with the SEC, those are statements that shareholders have the right to legally rely on. And so what we're talking about here is material misstatements to the SEC and to the public, failures of independent oversight, and failure to have a full-time CEO running the company, and even worse, in what that CEO, Elon Musk, is now doing, working against the interests of Tesla shareholders by destroying the Inflation Reduction Act, removing some of the incentives to buy EVs, and alienating the customers who might buy those vehicles. That's not just bad management, it is illegal. And that's why I am proposing this securities litigation. As you can see, our retirement systems have suffered substantial losses, as have all other Tesla shareholders, as a result of this mismanagement, this lack of oversight, this failure to maintain a full-time CEO, and these material misrepresentations. Let's see, as noted in the press release, as of March 28th, the 5 pension funds own over 3 million shares of Tesla. Those saw substantial increases in the run-up prior to the last year. They reached a peak of 1.26 billion, and now in the last 3 months that has dropped to 831 million. And today, I am here to say enough is enough. It is time to sue Tesla. And so I've sent a letter to Corporation Counsel Muriel Good-Trufant, the head of the New York City Law Department. It's the Law Department's responsibility to represent the pension funds in securities litigation or to bring in outside firms to do so. And sue securities litigation on behalf of the 5 New York City pension funds against Tesla for these material misstatements. By filing litigation against Tesla's board of directors, New York City's pension systems can pursue financial damages to cover the losses that we have suffered as a result of those misrepresentations, and also to seek governance changes, including a full-time CEO. I believe that the outcome of securities litigation will be preferable to divestment because we can recover the losses that we've experienced and force the governance changes that Tesla has long needed to get an independent board of directors and to get a full-time CEO, which any company needs. If Elon Musk wants to leave Doge and come back and be the full-time CEO of Tesla, that can be appropriate. Or if he wants to join the board but have someone else be a full-time CEO, that could be appropriate. But Tesla shareholders deserve a full-time CEO of their company. They deserve meaningful independent oversight. And they deserve a company that doesn't submit material misrepresentations to the SEC. This type of lawsuit is not new for us. In September 2023, the 5 New York City pension funds filed a shareholder derivative lawsuit. The New York City Law Department worked with outside counsel to bring that litigation, to file a shareholder derivative lawsuit against the board of directors and certain officers of Fox Corporation, the parent company of Fox News. That complaint alleged that the board knew that Fox News' promotion of political narratives around Dominion voting systems and the 2020 elections were without regard for whether the factual assertions on air were true, that created defamation risk, and that Fox had a business model of broadcasting stories that appealed to their viewers, regardless of the truth, that exposed shareholders to risk, and that the company in that case experienced losses, had a settlement of $780 million, and the board used shareholder money to pay it. So in that case, we filed, the law department filed on behalf of the 5 pension funds, shareholder derivative lawsuit, seeking that the board should make shareholders whole for that $787 million, and in that case as well, make governance changes to make sure that the company protects the long-term value that shareholders expect. And that's really what this is about at the end of the day. My duty as controller and all the other fiduciaries of the New York City pension funds, we've got a long-term obligation. You know, first-year teacher who started teaching this year, we hope they'll teach another, 25 years and then retire and continue to earn their pension for 20, 30, 40 years more. So we already have obligations that run out to the end of the century. We are looking for companies with long-term growth potential, and there is no doubt that selling high-quality electric vehicles on a mass scale to customers can be a good way to grow the economic value of this company and the value to shareholders. But for that to happen, you've got to take the long-term view. Have a CEO who's focused on growth and performance, have a board that's providing independent oversight, and tell the truth. That's what shareholders have the legal right to expect. That's why we filed that lawsuit at Fox. That's why we have a robust program of shareholder engagement led by Assistant Controller Mike Garland, who is here today. Thank you, Mike, for your long-standing work, going back, I think, 20 years at this point, long before me or any particular controller, upholding shareholder value for the long term. And that's why today I'm calling on the law department to pursue securities litigation at Tesla to protect the interests of New York City's retirees. Thank you very much. I'll be glad to take your questions.
One on and one off. Do we go back to back or just pause? No problem. Happy to follow the rules. So I feel like you answered this a little bit toward the back end. And I realize it would be at a substantial loss, but why is this lawsuit not in tandem with just divesting?
We believe securities litigation is a better and more effective approach than divestment would be. We're seeking 2 critical things. First, that the board cover the losses that the pension funds have experienced. That would be better than selling at those losses. And we are pursuing the governance changes, a full-time CEO, independent oversight, that will be better for securing long-term value at Tesla. Look, over the years since the pension funds, the New York City pension funds have invested in Tesla, we've made a lot of money there. There was substantial growth in the development and selling of EVs that has been valuable for shareholders and made a lot of money for New York City's retirees. We believe that can be true in the long term as well, and that a better approach to our fiduciary duty to getting changes at the company that make it possible for the stock to grow over time can be achieved by this litigation. So again, what we're calling on the law department to do is bring litigation that would seek 2 things: recovery of losses and governance changes that put Tesla in a better position with a full-time CEO and independent of a board to make money for the shareholders for the long term, including New York City systems. Now, look, if that lawsuit doesn't get filed or if it doesn't achieve those goals, there would likely come a time at which I would call for the pension funds to consider divesting their stock, but I think shareholder litigation has a better chance of achieving the outcomes that we want on both fronts, losses and governance changes.
Did you say there was a resolution of the Fox case?
The Fox case is ongoing. No, first there had to be, we had filed shareholder litigation as part of a consortium, and there was a competing claim that went to the Chancery Court, which found that New York City, that our consortium is in the lead, and the suit is underway currently.
So you don't really know how this is going to end and how much this is costing the city in litigation?
The shareholder litigation doesn't cost the city anything. The way the shareholder litigation works, independent, generally outside firms, I mean, the law department theoretically could do it themselves, but generally the law department manages a coterie of independent firms. The firms bring the lawsuit, and they make their money out of, out of when they win, out of a settlement. So the city is not spending any, I mean, I think all of those firms are procured for $1, but the city is not spending anything on the Fox lawsuit. You're right that we don't yet know how that will be resolved. And the same would be true on the Tesla lawsuit. But over time, we have recovered substantially, broadly through securities litigation. The pensions brought by the law department or those other firms has secured substantial funds for the pension fund systems.
Another on-topic question.
How realistic do you think it is that this lawsuit's actually filed?
I think it's very realistic that the lawsuit could be filed. I give the example of Fox just to show that there is, a model. That was a securities derivatives suit, not a shareholder derivatives lawsuit, not a Article 10b lawsuit, but the pension funds have done meaningful numbers of both. I don't have the numbers on how many we've taken part in or initiated over the last 5 years, but a substantial number. We've got a great array of firms that work with us here. The claims are strong. I think it is a credit to Michael Garland and our team that we've been articulating these concerns for a while. If we hadn't filed that notice of exempt solicitation, we might still be here saying the material misrepresentations of recent months are a violation, but we've laid the groundwork since 2017, and especially with last May's notice of exempt solicitation, being on a record to the SEC, again, long before DOGE was a thing in anyone's mind, saying this is not a company that's providing meaningful oversight of its CEO, still giving him a $46 billion executive compensation, even though anyone can see he's not showing up for work at Tesla on a daily basis. So the grounds are strong, and the lawsuit is entirely realistic. The pension funds have over 3 million shares. I think. So yes, I have somewhere the exact number, but it's over 3 million shares. They've made a lot of money. The unrealized gains of those 3 million shares, even at today's value, is over $400 million. They reached a peak value of $1.26 billion. Currently, that has shrunk to $831 million. Again, even at $831 million, that reflects unrealized gains of over $400 million. So Tesla has been a good investment for the city's 5 pension funds historically. We believe it can be again, but it requires a full-time CEO and the governance changes that we're seeking. Yeah. Well, one thing that Governor Hochul is pushing for that I agree with is increased flexibility for involuntary hospitalization if a mentally ill person presents a danger to themselves or to others. And I have long said that I think it is important to have some increased flexibility to allow nurse practitioners to be one of the two people that says this person needs to be hospitalized or to stay in the hospital, to make sure we're looking at someone's whole history and not just what they're presenting with at the moment, and to really assess whether someone is able to take care of themselves. So I support increased flexibility there. That said, if you don't provide the resources to get people off the street and connect them to housing and services with a housing first approach, you will just keep cycling people from subway to street to hospital, sometimes to jail, and right back again. In just last week or the week before, new data came out on the Adams administration homeless sweeps, which swept in the period they were looking at over 3,000 people, forcibly removed them. Some of them even went to hospitals, but 0 of them got connected to stable housing with services, and mostly people just went somewhere else and slept on a street, that very night. So we need both things: expanded authority for involuntary hospitalization and a housing first approach that puts the resources into getting people housing and services. So far as I know, in the mayor's race, I continue to be the only candidate pushing a housing approach. Eric Adams is just constantly talking about sweeping people and doing it. Andrew Cuomo's plan similarly, would fail to. There's nothing in Andrew Cuomo's plan about getting people off the streets and into stable housing and services. New Yorkers want to see police officers in the subway overnight. They want to feel safer on the subway, and they want to know a person could be put in the hospital if they need to be there. But they're smart enough to know that if you don't get someone connected to housing, they're just going to be there again pretty soon.
And on the involuntary commitments, do you support the Adams package, the name is escaping me at the moment, or something slightly different that's being kicked around in state government?
I support what the governor is seeking. I don't support everything that the mayor is seeking.
Any other odd topics? Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.